Hi, my name's Ian Puddick. People know me online because I was involved in a huge police operation called Operation Bohan by the Counter-Terrorism Police. I won every single case. The police abused me in custody. I was brutalised. The CCTV was wiped. And I made a huge fuss about it and tried to hold every single officer to account, including the police commissioner. During that time, I met David Shayler. And David Shayler is a former MI5 officer. We became very good friends. He stayed with me here at my office for quite a period of time, unfortunately. That was a joke. So we're going to do an interview with David Shayler, and it's about life inside MI5. Now, obviously, there are restrictions, the Official Secrets Act, etc. So we're not going to breach the Official Secrets Act. David wrote a book that the government initially tried to ban called Spies, Lies and Whistleblowers. And it was eventually republished with some redactions. I did actually find out what the redactions were, and it's very interesting. So I'm going to do something I've never done before, and I probably, hopefully, will never do again. David has had a very difficult time. I'm not going to say any more than that. You can watch the interviews and you can make up your own mind what kind of lifestyle David has had to have, unfortunately, because of how he's been treated. So none of my YouTube channel, some of my videos have had 1.5 million views. My YouTube channel is not monetized. None of my videos are monetized. I don't make 1p from YouTube, and my plans are never to do that. However, this one video, there will be a link under the video for donations at your discretion, and every single penny will go to my good friend David Shayler. As I said, you can make up your mind. You listen to what David's got to say, listen to what's happened to him. He's a good man, he's an honest man. He told the truth and was destroyed for it. Well, not totally destroyed. So that's my introduction, and I look forward to speaking to David.
Well, you've seen a lot of files of politicians.
George Galloway.
Yeah, George Galloway, for example. But I mean, you could pick a number of reasons why they might want to keep an eye on George Galloway. Not least because he knew people abroad in the Middle East and so on. But also because by his work as a Labour politician, he would come into contact with people like the Socialist Worker Party and people like that. So therefore they'd be looking at his relationship with them and whether they were trying to manipulate him or not.
Manipulate George Galloway? I don't think that's going to
happen. Well, exactly, of course.
Good luck with that.
But this wasn't long after, of course, we had entryism, where we had people from militant tendency standing for the Labour Party under what was called a false flag. So there was a good reason in some ways to look at some of this. But people tended to get files for all sorts of ridiculous reasons. I mean, Ronnie Scott, who did the jazz, organised a jazz festival in the Eastern Bloc, and therefore they gave him a file because they weren't sure what his relationship was with the Eastern Bloc.
It's paranoia though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is paranoia, and it's all cultural stuff, basically.
Yeah, no, it's all, everything you said has to be cultural.
Yeah. And they looked at other people. I mean, obviously people that have now gone are people like Jack Straw and Robin Cook, Mohammed Al-Fayed had a file.
I bet.
So all sorts of people have files for all sorts of different reasons.
Yeah.
But the most interesting one, and I've got to be very careful about this, and one of the reasons I didn't go so much when I was blowing the whistle on it, is that somebody told me, a very good friend, during the 1992 general election.
In the services?
Yeah, in the services, in MI5, in that section, counter-subversion section, told me they'd been looking at the Blair file, and Blair was an agent of MI5 in the 80s. Now, at the time, Blair was a nobody in 92. He was like Shadow Health Secretary or something. So it was just kind of funny if Labour had got in, there would be a kind of ex-MI5 agent in the new government. Obviously, Labour lost the 92 general election, but in the next few years, obviously, Tony Blair rose stratospherically. Yeah,
I mean, he only killed 1 million people in Iraq and he's still a hero.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
You can't get him off the telly.
He's a knight of the realm, even. Yeah. Now, obviously, knowing this, when I blew the whistle in 97, was 3 months into his prime ministership. But because I hadn't seen it myself, I didn't want to blow the whistle on it. Yeah. But there was other information that came up that led me to believe there may be something to this.
And is it possible that people could have been setting you up?
Well, not at the time, because this is 92 in the service. It's not like I've even thought in my own head about blowing the whistle, you know what I mean? No. I mean, if it had been later on, I might have mentioned it to a friend or something who might have been a spy, who might get back to MI5. But there was no reason like that. That was the other peculiar thing about it. There was no reason for them to be feeding me with false information at that point.
No.
And what happened was two things. One was when I went to prison in France when they tried to extradite me. Somebody sent, I got a copy of the Sunday Times, across the top, Shayler, I can bring down Labour government. Now, obviously, I've never said that. You read the article, there's no words in the article like that. But I think they were playing with Blair's head. Thinking, like, he knows. And that's how they play with Blair's head. I then found out from the editor of the Mail on Sunday, who published my disclosure.
Or it was a really good heading that would sell papers.
Yeah, but they like to play with these things. They could have had other things to try and sell newspapers with. That was, I think, deliberately designed to play with Blair's mind. And, you know, there's nobody else you could have brought down New Labour than Blair. You know, if you tapped anybody else, they were superfluous. It had to be Blair, so it had to be targeted in. But later on, with the editor of the Mail on Sunday, the newspaper that published the disclosures, he told me when I got back from France after 3 years of exile that he'd been called to see Blair shortly after I'd made my initial disclosures, and Blair took him into the back garden of Downing Street and said to him repeatedly, "What does Shayler know? What does Shayler know?" So this again might indicate that what I was saying was true.
Yeah.
Now, even when I got back to this country and other people took up the story, so yeah, you're entitled to take it up and investigate it. You know what my position is. I didn't see it directly, so I can't say hand on heart. But if you can find some corroboration, brilliant. And they put it to number 10, and number 10 actually replied and didn't deny it. That was a funny thing. They had a go at me, obviously, but there's no denial there. It's been put to them, no denial. So when Tony Blair had a chance to deny working for MI5, he didn't deny it. But this whole thing has become interwoven with another story about Blair, which is a story about him cottaging. And I don't know whether that's got something to do with it as well. At one point, I thought he was trying to...
I thought that was just all internet nonsense.
You're right. There's no way you can get a source on that story. Just for people who don't know the story is that Blair in the 1980s was...
We won't talk about it.
Yeah, but he got away with it, kind of thing, yeah. But I wondered at one point if Blair was trying to get me to believe in the MI5 thing to distract from this other thing, basically. I don't know. But I say that's the facts with that Tony Blair thing, and the fact remains that when he was given a chance to deny it, he didn't, basically.
Interesting.
And that gives you a good thing in law to say, well, the reason I can mention this without fear of libel is he didn't deny it.
Yeah, he was given an opportunity, publicly asked.
If you don't deny giving him the chance, it's fair game as far as I'm concerned.
Interesting.
So that was Blair, yeah.
Any of the others that come to mind?
Not so interesting, really. I'm trying to think, this was years ago, and it was fairly sort of low-level stuff. I mean, people like John Lennon had a file, partly because of his association with the Irish Republicans. Partly,
really?
Yeah, partly because he was associated also with the International Marxist group, I think it was. But you'd be amazed at the number of famous people that had files for one reason or another. Christopher Hitchens had a file. Yeah. But that was because he was a Trotskyist. He was a fully signed up Trotskyist when he was younger. So as a member, he had a file made on him. Even though he seemed to become increasingly right wing later on.
It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
Will his brother Peter have one now?
I don't think his brother Peter would have a file, but he might do because he's done some anti-war stuff. So he may have communicated with people who are anti-war.
Well, he's been very critical of the whole Russia-Ukraine narrative and what's really going on.
And other wars beforehand. Peter Hitchens,
he's good.
He's quite right on some things. He's very good on war. Yeah.
He's anti-war.
Yeah. But so this, they had these files a bit. Now, obviously, those files can be used to blackmail people. People have pointed out they seem to know that Cyril Smith was a paedophile, for example. They didn't seem to report that to the Queen when she thinks about knighting him. No. Same with Jimmy Savile, basically.
Yeah, no, of course.
So there's something weird going on here. I mean, MI5, always their argument, we don't investigate paedophilia. No, you don't. But you do security assessments on the threat of somebody being a paedophile and being blackmailed. So you should know about these things. And you should be giving a proper assessment, basically.
If anyone follows Andrew Lowney on social media, he's a fantastic author. He's written some fantastic books about the Cambridge spies. He's very articulate, obviously. He's very authoritative, and he's a fantastic author. He's a extremely nice, decent guy, and he's just released his book. I've just bought it and read it on. The name's gone. I'm looking at his face. He was blown up by the IRA. Prince Charles's.
Mountbatten.
Lord Mountbatten. Traitors about him being a traitor.
Yeah. No, there's a lot for that one. Well,
they've got he's referenced FBI files. He was a paedophile. Some victims have come through, and the government has spent over, I think it's near £1 million of public money trying to not disclose public files that the public have a right to see, and I think he spent over nearly £500,000 of his own money, and he's winning. is winning because they're public files.
But that's a very interesting story about Mountbatten.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Most people will tell you that
Clayton
Mountbatten,
King, incredible.
Mountbatten and Annie Machon were killed by the IRA, but on the inside, I'll tell you now, the IRA disclaimed it. And according to MI5's records, there was an organisation called IPLO, the Irish People's Liberation Organisation, that almost seems to be purely set up to carry out these assassinations and then to kill each other at the end so there's no more trace of them. And the reason this was happening, let's be clear about this, is Mountbatten was involved in a coup involving the army against the Harold Wilson government in the late 70s.
Absolutely.
And that's an absolute disgrace. That should have come out, that there was nearly a coup in this country, and our democratic government was essentially undermined by the British army.
All of the files going back to Churchill, Churchill destroyed lots of the files about him and sent him out to the Bahamas or something. It's just about embarrassment, though, isn't it?
Yeah, this
is about embarrassment.
They use classification to cover up embarrassment, even though that's actually technically unlawful. You can only cover up things for the grounds of true national security.
Sure.
And they can't distinguish between embarrassment and national security. That's always been my argument.
It's nonsense.
Yeah, and I say it's like the Operation All thing as well. They've got all these people that came to attention investigation of paedophiles. They've made that classified, so all the people on that list
I know with the intelligence.
blackmailable.
A friend of mine is one of the intelligence officers on Operation All, and he says how badly it was handled, and how innocent people's names came up. Because it was just poorly investigated. It's absolutely shocking.
But there's also a lot of rich people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And some very significant people got away with it.
Yeah, so they're all blackmailable now to do the bidding of the elite, basically. That's how it works. That's what people got to understand, is that what goes on our television screens and in Parliament is just a complete smoke screen. It's like a play taking place to give some veneer of respectability to what is really going on.
To the official narrative.
Yeah. But when you ever look at the official narrative, it's never supported by evidence or sound analysis, and always peculiarly works in the interest of the banking elite. You know, all our change we have, all our legislation introduced, is supposed to help the people. It never helps us. That's why we're getting ever widening divisions of wealth and poverty. We're seeing more and more injustice.
I think Tony Blair. I think Tony Benn famously said, "We always have money for war."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
there's always money for war.
Always money for war.
Always money for war.
Yeah,
and he was right.
David,
thank you for that. That was brilliant. Thank you.